Hi everyone, I'm Bree Baker, and I'm going to be reading and discussing with you Kamik Joins the Pack, adapted from the Memories of Daryl Baker and illustrated by Chin Lang. Kamik joins the pack. Kamik ran beside Jake as they made their way down the snowy road toward Jake's uncle's house. Jake was excited to show his uncle how much his puppy had learned and how obedient he was becoming. Jake's uncle was a great musher who had won many dog sled races. "Try to look extra strong and obedient today," Jake said as he looked down at his puppy. Kamik just wagged his tail and walked on. "Hello, Jake," Jake's uncle called as he looked up from his work. Kamik ran and sat next to him, waiting to be patted. "Your puppy is getting bigger," he said as he gave Kamik a tap on the head. "He is," Jake said, feeling a bit of pride. "I am already teaching him commands to run. He is very smart. I can't wait to get more dogs so that Kamik can lead my very own dog team." Jake's uncle was just beginning to harness his team. The dogs all looked very excited and eager to run. Jake imagined Kamik as the lead dog of the team. He was sure Kamik could lead the fastest dog team around. "It is good that Kamik is smart," Jake's uncle said as he continued to harness his dogs. "Smart, hard-working dogs are the best dogs. Being a good musher takes a lot of work." "I know," Jake said. "I have to give the dogs lots of exercise, right?" "That is true, but before you take out a dog team, you must make sure they are healthy and in good condition," Jake's uncle replied. "In the fall and winter, I have to cut my dogs' nails so they will not break while they're running. I must also check to make sure no ice has formed in the hair on the bottoms of their paws. And they need to be fed every day, even in the middle of a blizzard, when you may not feel like going outside to feed them. Dogs rely on us to keep them healthy so that they don't get hurt when they are running with the pack." Jake watched as his uncle checked all his dogs, lifting their paws and inspecting them. Jake had never checked Kamik's paws. He leaned down and lifted Kamik's front paw just as his uncle was doing. "There are lots of other skills that come in handy too," Jake's uncle continued. "Dogs love to chew on harnesses and ropes, so it helps to know how to sew and braid in order to fix those. And you'll need to know how to build dog houses and fix your sled if it breaks." "Wow," said Jake. "I didn't know there would be so much to do." Jake looked down at the snow. He did not know how to do many of these things. Jake's uncle put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to learn everything all at once," he said with a smile. "You can learn alongside your dogs. When I was your age, I had 5 dogs. They did not know how to pull a sled, but one day I harnessed them and tried to ride around town. The dogs would not pull the sled, so I had to get off and walk with them most of the way home. I was sweating from pulling my dogs along, even though it was the middle of winter. When I was halfway home, some mushers passed me with their dog teams. I felt so embarrassed, but I never gave up. From that day, I started to slowly learn what I needed to know to build a dog team." Thinking about his uncle at his own age made Jake feel a little bit better. "So what should I do first?" Jake asked. "My Tata Siak told me to spend lots of time with Kamik to get to know him, and my Ananati Siak taught me how to teach him commands while I play with him." "Your grandparents taught you well. Dogs and their masters do need to spend a lot of time together in order to understand each other. My dogs know when I am happy and when I'm upset. To know for sure if Kamik can be a lead dog, he needs to run with other dogs." "I let new dogs run at the back of the team to see how they behave. Just like people, dogs behave in different ways. Some dogs work very hard when they pull. They look straight ahead as they run and never bother the other dogs. Some dogs are not as hardworking. They look around or back at me while they're running and bother the other dogs. A lead dog needs to be very focused, Jake's uncle said as he harnessed another of his dogs. There was one empty harness left at the back of the team. Jake looked at Kamik. He knew Kamik could be a hard-working dog, and he wanted so badly to see him run with his uncle's team. Maybe we should see how Kamik does with the team, Jake's uncle offered. Yes, Jake said, barely able to contain his excitement. Jake grabbed the harness and slid it onto Kamik's back. Jake's uncle showed him how to attach Kamik to the lead, and Kamik stood in line with the other dogs, eager and ready to run. We won't be able to go very far with Kamik his first time pulling. Puppies can only run for a mile or two at first. Pulling is hard work and we don't want to strain his muscles, Jake's uncle said. Jake nodded before leaning down to check Kamik's harness one last time. Okay, boy, he whispered to his puppy. Time to show us you can lead. Kamik lifted his head and licked at Jake's face. Jake climbed onto the sled with his uncle. He could hardly believe Kamik was about to run with a dog team for the first time. Are you ready? Jake's uncle asked him. Jake smiled and nodded as the sound of the whip started the dogs running. As the dogs took off, Kamik ran hard and fast with the rest of the pack, never looking back. The end. Couple of notes that I had on this book and the critique of Kamik Joins the Pack. First of all, we can tell that it's a narrative picture book. It tells a story, and it follows the course of Kamik and Jake and their adventure in order for Kamik to become a dog sled dog. The colors in the book, they use a muted tone. There aren't very many bright colors that really catch the eye, and as someone who grew up in the snow, it reminded me of that kind of setting, like kind of dreary and white and gray for the most part. I did notice, however, that in a lot of these pages, Jake is seen wearing a red scarf and red boots and a yellow hat. Your attention is almost drawn to him. And he is the main character, so that makes sense. I also think that perhaps it's a representation of his youth and his excitement, the symbolism of the bright colors and the excitement that Jake has for Kamik to be a snow dog. One thing I wanted to pay particular attention to as well, the illustrations do a great job of helping to tell the story. If we look here at page 10, Jake is very discouraged and upset, and you can see that. You can see his facial expression and his body language, and he's frustrated because he didn't realize how much was involved in becoming a musher, and all he wants is to be a musher and to have Kamik lead a dog pack. And now he's learning of all these other things that he has to do that he doesn't know how to do, and he's frustrated, and he almost seems defeated in this picture. Look at that sad face. Then if you turn the page, you don't even really have to read the text here to see what's going on. There's a sense of relief in Jake's expression. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to learn everything all at once. I don't have to be a super musher my first day into it. And also look at the expression on Jake's uncle's face and his body language. With his hand on Jake's shoulder and the relaxed look in his face, and the way his hand is and his stance, you can tell that Jake's uncle is reassuring him, saying, it's going to be okay, you don't have to learn everything all at once, and I'll help you. So it's neat how the text and the pictures really work together in this story. Just one other note I had on this book is the cultural essence of it. First of all, I read a little bit about Daryl Baker, and he's actually a born Inuit. He's from Arviat, and that's in Canada, by the Hudson Bay. And also, the illustrator is from Shanghai, but she has lived in Toronto, Ontario for a while now. So they both have experience with Canada and with Inuit culture. And if you look at the drawings, they're not stereotypical and therefore possibly racist. They look like normal people, but you can see the sense of culture in the artistry, as opposed to just your stereotypical white characters. And I thought it was really important to note the cultural aspect of this book, that it was written by an Inuit, it was illustrated by a Chinese person, and I just thought that was really important to bring to the table. Also, you probably heard me struggle. Jake talks about his grandparents, and I only know that it's his grandparents because Jake's uncle actually says your grandparents taught you well, but he says my atatasiak and my ananatsiak. I had to look up those pronunciations, and even looking up, I was struggling. But I think this was really important. I think this book, any kid of any background, culturally, can look at this book and relate to the things that Jake goes through and to his emotions. And overall, I think it was just a wonderful picture book that could open a door to a lot of learning opportunities for kids. So, my reading probably didn't do it justice, so check it out. Thanks.